22.
1822?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. I just curious.
Mm. See, in verse 19, okay, even if you go back before that, 19, the high priest then asked Jesus about his disciples and his doctrine. And Jesus answered, I spoke to you openly, etc. And when he had said these things, one of the officers who struck Jesus with the palm of his hand, saying, do you answer the high priest like that? And he goes on. Verse 24. Yeah. See 24?
Yes.
Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. See. In 19 is referred to as the high priest, Annas. The high priest then asked the disciples about Jesus. Go ahead.
If I remember right, Caiaphas was Annas' son-in-law,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and then he was removed, and his son-in-law was put in his place.
Mm-hmm.
But he still held heavy sway over the Jews because he had been a high priest. For a number of years, his son-in-law was the high priest, and so he played a very prominent role. Is what I remember.
Mm.
It's not biblical; it's extra biblical that tells us these things.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Look at verse 13 of chapter 18 of John.
Yeah. Go ahead and read that, brother Richard.
And he brought him to Annas first, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year.
Right. So John identifies him as the high priest. But as far as the Romans are concerned, Caiaphas was the high priest because they were the ones that put him in that place. And see, he is referred to there in verse 22, right? 24. 24 is referred to as the high priest as well.
Yeah, it says both were.
Right. Yeah. So does that?
If I understood you correctly, I thought you said that the Romans had a role in deciding who the high priest would be.
Yeah.
And that seemed a little odd to me.
Yeah. Right.
And this was the Hasmoneans,
Mm. Right.
Judas the Hammer,
Mm.
his line. And when the Romans came in, they became very Romanized,
Okay.
Mm.
sought Caesar's approval, and as
Okay.
each Caesar would change, they would influence who the high priest was.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Right. All right. So as you can see, before Annas, before Caiaphas, before Herod, of course, there isn't much information regarding him being struck or beaten, but there was a very poor treatment of Christ, and lastly, before Pilate. All right, now let's go to the next section or subheading. Jesus faces the Sanhedrin, verses 66 through 71. Let's see. Sister Karen, can you read that for us, please? Yeah, chapter 22, verses 66 all the way to 70.
When they came, the assembly of the elders of the people gathered together, told the chief priests and scribes, and they led him away to their council and said, if you are the Christ, tell us. Then he said to them, if I tell you, you will not believe, and if I ask you, you will not answer. But from now on, Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of power of God. So they all said, are you the Son of God then? And he said to them, you say that I am. And then they said, what further testimony do we need?
All right.
We heard it ourselves.
All right. So I think that sort of concludes the matter as far as they are concerned. That Jesus Christ claimed what? To be Son of God. And what was the problem? What was the problem that they had with that statement he made?
You make him a God.
You make him a God. And what's wrong with that?
There is only one God.
Right. Blasphemy, and there's only one God. Because when you go back to the Old Testament, what are we told? Deuteronomy 6. Sorry, love the Lord your God. Go ahead. With all your heart. So,
Yeah, love
yeah.
the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind.
Right, right, right. It's known in the according to the Hebrew as the Shema, right?
Is that also in relation to Deuteronomy 4:6 or
6:4. Same thing, yeah.
Hear,
Yeah.
Israel, Lord God is one?
Yes, that's the one, yeah. So there is one God. So Jesus Christ, you got Jesus Christ appearing now, claiming to be the Son of God. And many times during his ministry, he claimed to be God, didn't he? As far as they are concerned, there is only one God, and that's blasphemy. See, so that's now every reason, according to them, to put him to death. But they've seen all the evidences that only God could work through Jesus Christ. They've seen all the evidence, the miracles, the signs, everything that they saw, they observed. They kept on denying what they saw. See, and they discounted the fact that he was from God. All right, here's a question. Why did Judas betray Jesus? Sorry? Right. I just thought I'd just throw that in there. Okay, let's go to chapter 23 now. Okay, so this is what we've covered in chapter 22. Judas agrees to betray Jesus. Jesus and his disciples prepare the Passover. Jesus institutes the Lord's Supper. The disciples argue about greatness. What was the problem there about greatness? Who wanted to be great? James and John. They wanted to be great. They wanted to sit on either side of the kingdom when Jesus Christ sat as king. And then again, Christ predicts Peter's denial. Now, what lesson can we learn from that, denying Jesus Christ?
That you can repent of that.
Mm.
You know that God uses him later in life.
Right.
He's very prominent.
Right. How many times have we been put in a tight squeeze and we learn that if you told the truth, you're going to be in trouble. But if you lie, you can get out of it. Haven't we all done that? You see? Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, no. All right, so again, the point is that yes, during our lifetime, we would have done something of this nature just to get us out of trouble. And this is exactly what Peter did. He denied Jesus Christ. And then there's the prayer in the garden, the betrayal and the arrest. And then, of course, Peter's denial of Jesus Christ. That Jesus is mocked. Jesus faces the Sanhedrin. That ends chapter 22. Now we go to chapter 23. And we will begin from verses 1 to 5. In this chapter, as the subheading suggests there, Jesus is handed over to Pilate. Jesus faces Herod. Jesus taking the place of Barabbas. And then we see Jesus Christ on the cross. We see Jesus dying on the cross. And we finally see Jesus Christ buried in Joseph's tomb. So let's read verses 1 through 5. When Jesus is handed over to Pilate. Brother Richard, you want to read that?
And the entire assembly of them set out and brought him before Pilate. And they began to bring charges against him, saying, "We found this man misleading our nation and forbidding us to pay taxes to Caesar, and saying that he himself is Christ, a king." Now Pilate asked him, saying, "So you are the king of the Jews?" And he answered him and said, "It is as you say." But Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, "I find no grounds for charges in the case of this man." But they kept on insisting, saying, "He's stirring up the people, teaching all over Judea, starting from Galilee, as far as this place."
Okay, thank you. Now, the council here, or the people that we are being referred to here, for example, the Jewish rulers, they are roughly made about between 70 and 71 members in this ruling party of the Jews. Now, I've read 71 members in the Jewish Sanhedrin. I've read some accounts that said 70 members in the Jewish Sanhedrin. So whatever the case may be. All right, but you'll notice here that they brought 3 accusations against Jesus Christ. What were they?
We didn't pay taxes to Caesar.
Right? Mm. Yeah, tribute to Caesar is one.
Claims to be the Messiah.
Okay, yes, saying he himself is the Christ, right? Christ, a king. That's the second one. Oh, well, that's one of the 3. And what's the other? Converting the nation? Perverting the nation. Right, what does that mean, perverting the nation? Misleading the nation. The leaders are uncomfortable with Jesus and regard him with contempt. That is why they do not name him. Yeah, you'll notice what they say. This, in some translations, they refer to Jesus Christ as this man or this fellow. You'll notice that. But you'll notice if you go back to chapter 20, verse 21, this same Jesus, who they're referring to as a man or a fellow, they said about him, you say and teach rightly. See, there's one contradiction right there, that they're lying. Second, they regard him as a threat to the nation's tradition. Christ describes them as a faithless and perverse generation in chapter 9, verse 41. Now, they are saying he is perverting the nation. And then, of course, we're looking at taxes. But you recall in chapter 20, verse 20 through 25, what did Jesus Christ say about taxes? All right, so is he forbidding people to pay taxes? So all 3 accusations are false. They just want to get rid of him, get him out of the way. As in verse 3, then Pilate said, saying, are you the king of the Jews? He answered and said, it is as you say. Now, it is necessary for us to note what John chapter 18, verse 34 through 38 teaches. Go ahead and read that, Sister Brenda. From 34 to 38.
Is that your own idea, Jesus asked, or did others talk to you about me? Am I a Jew? Pilate replied. Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you have done? Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place. Go on.
Yeah, go on to 38.
You are a king then, said Pilate. Jesus answered, you say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. What is truth? Retorted Pilate. With this he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, I find no basis for a charge against him.
All right, very good. Now when we think about the kingdom of Christ, how does Christ describe that kingdom? Or his kingdom? Yeah, it's his body,
Church.
right? He says it's not of this world,
Right.
meaning that it's not a physical kingdom.
Right.
Where somebody's going to sit there as a king and conquer enemies or any opposition to him. So based on that, he's clearly telling the people that, or rather he's telling Pilate, and of course everybody else who's hearing, that his kingdom is not a physical kingdom for you to be threatened. See, All right, let's go to verses 6 through 12 now. This is his conversation there with Pilate. Before we go there, he says, I find no fault with this man. And now look at verse 6. Something very interesting takes place here. Read from verses 6 all the way to 12. Let's see. Go ahead, Brother Gerald.
Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked whether the man was Galilean. And as soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod's, he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who himself also was at Jerusalem at that time.
All right, stop there for a moment. He found no fault with Jesus Christ, Pilate. But when he learned that he was under Herod's jurisdiction, he was ready to get Jesus Christ off his hands. You see, and if you go back to chapter 13, verse 31 of Luke, Herod ruled Galilee as well as Perea. Okay, go ahead, Brother Gerald.
When Herod saw Jesus, he was exceeding glad, for he was desirous to see him of a long season, because he had heard many things of him, and he hoped to have seen some miracle done by it. Then he questioned with him in many words, but he answered nothing. And the chief priests and scribes stood and bitterly accused him. And Herod with his men of war set him at naught and mocked him, and arrayed him in the gorgeous robe, and sent him again to Pilate.
Okay, thank you. Now, notice we find Herod as being a ruler that was looking forward to seeing Jesus Christ. Why do you think he was looking forward to seeing Jesus Christ?
He wanted to see magic.
Yeah, exactly. Go to chapter 9, verse 9 of Luke. Let's see, Sister Marianne, read that. Chapter 9, verse 9.
But Herod said, I beheaded John. Who then is this I hear such things about? And he tried to see him.
All right, right from that time. He had the strong desire to see Jesus Christ, but he could never see Jesus Christ. See, he was interested in seeing a miracle. Some fancy tricks, maybe, if he wants to call it that. But he's excited about that. Well, how do we know that he's a deceitful man? How do we know that his real interest wasn't in seeing what marvelous things Jesus Christ can do and convict him?
Well, because the end of the story is the soldiers mocked him, put him in purple, sent him back to Pilate. If he truly was interested in Jesus and being converted, he would have taken that moment to release him and
Right.
tell me more, tell me about God, tell me the truth. But he doesn't do that.
Right. Now, you recall also in addition to what you're saying, you recall what he did to John the Baptist? Did he have a great admiration for John the Baptist?
No.
Right, because he took his head off. Right. So all of this words, the words that he was using to describe his excitement of wanting to see Jesus Christ, was all false. But remember one thing: no one is allowed to take the life of a person without the authority of Rome. So Herod couldn't do whatever he wanted to do here with Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ was just there with Pilate. Okay. So Jesus then answers him nothing. The accusations of the Jewish leaders and the insults that Herod must have felt at being rebuffed resulted in more contempt and mocking for Jesus Christ. And this shows Herod's true attitude toward Jesus Christ. And notice the derision by Herod. And the chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him. Jesus is ridiculed by Herod. Herod is reconciled with Pilate. Something good has turned out here. Two enemies at the expense of Jesus Christ. See verse 12, that very day Pilate and Herod became friends with each other, for previously they had been at enmity with each other. So enemies can be bonded together. That's the impact Jesus Christ has on them. Isn't that strange? All right, let's go on. Verse 30 to 25. Jesus taking the place of Barabbas. Let's read verses 13 to 25. Go ahead, Sister B.
Then Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, said to them, You have brought this man to me as one who misleads the people. And indeed, having examined him in your presence, I have found no fault in this man concerning these things of which you accuse him. No, neither did Herod. For I sent you back to him, and indeed nothing deserving of death has been done by him. I will therefore chastise him and release him.
Okay, hang on there, Sister B. Every time that there was any interaction between Jesus and Pilate, what did Pilate say? What was his conclusion? I found no fault in him. Look at verse 4. I'll come back to you, Sister B. Go ahead, Sister Lenoma, read verse 4 of the same chapter.
So Pilate said to the chief priests.
No, you don't. I'll call you back just now. Read verse 4, Sister Lenoma.
Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, I find no guilt in this man.
All right, that's the first one. I find no guilt in him. Look at verse 14 and 15, which was just read. He says also, I find no fault in him, right? But read one more passage, verse 22 of the same chapter. Yes.
And a third time he said to them, Why, what evil has he done? I have found in him no guilt deserving death. I will therefore punish and release him.
Right.
But they were urgent, demanding with loud cries that he should be crucified, and their voices prevailed.
All right, that's good. Thank you. So 3 times Pilate says, I find no fault in him. So Pilate thought, okay, if I just chastise Jesus and let him and set him free, that would be sufficient. But that wasn't good enough for the Jewish people. I wouldn't say Jewish people, but especially the Jewish rulers and all the followers of the Jewish traditions. Okay, go ahead, Sister B. 17 and 18, 17 through 20.
For it was necessary for him to release one of them at the feast. And they all cried out at once, saying, Away with this man, and release to us Barabbas, who had been thrown into prison for a certain rebellion made in the city, and for murder. Pilate, therefore, wishing to release Jesus, again called out to them. But they shouted, saying, Crucify him, crucify him.
Go all the way to 22 as well.
Then he said to them the third time, Why, what evil has he done? I have found no reason for death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go.
Okay, stop there. Now notice there are many factors involved in Pilate's actions, and the most significant ones are this. One, he acknowledged Christ's innocence. Number 2, he understood the Sanhedrin's manipulation and the threats. You can read that in John 19:12. Someone in his own family also warned him. Who was that? His wife, right. His wife said, while he was sitting at the judgment seat, his wife said to him, have nothing to do with this just man, for I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him. See? And then he was afraid of a riot during the feast days. And now as a ruler, his goal and objective, representing Rome, was to maintain peace. Anybody that got out of hand would be punished. And so he was afraid that by releasing Jesus Christ, that there may be problems, there will be trouble. Go ahead, Val.
But it's interesting because he knowingly releases an insurrectionist. a man who was trying to overthrow the Roman government. You
Right.
think you'd be worried about
Him.
Rome finding that out, right?
Right.
And then you might be talking about this, to play on the names.
Mm.
He condemns Jesus, the actual Son of God, and frees an insurrectionist who goes by the name Son of God, Bar Abba,
Right.
Right?
Right.
the fake
Mm.
Son of God, he
Right.
releases.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point. Right. So Pilate then, of course, is also a very superstitious man. You know how we know that? Look at John chapter 19, verses 7 and 8. Go ahead, Sister Martha, Sister Catherine. I'm going to come back to you, Sister B. Mm.
The Jews answered him, we have a law, and according to our law he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God. Therefore, when Pilate heard that saying, he was the more afraid, and went again into the praetorium and said to Jesus, where are you from? But Jesus gave him no answer.
What was Pilate afraid of? What was Pilate afraid of? The statement. What's that statement? You are the Son of God. Would you think that he's a little bit superstitious suddenly? Okay. Yes?
Sorry, on a side note, do you have Luke chapter 23, verse 17?
If I have, do I have it?
It's not in this Bible. It skips 17, and I Googled it, and it said that it
Oh.
was removed from the Bible. I'm a little confused.
Okay, we let me get into
Is that a whole
It-
nother-
It's in parentheses here in the New King
In
James
this one,
Version.
it just skips it completely. It goes from 16 to 18.
Yeah. Right.
And I just thought that was weird.
Right.
I never saw that before.
Well, that's very interesting. Well, I didn't stumble upon that, but you're probably right. It's probably not in the original.
On Google, it says he was obliged to release one prisoner for them at the festival.
Mm.
But then it says that it's in the original Greek and it's been removed from the Bible.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Other early manuscripts didn't contain 17, so like there's just a little discrepancy there, which some may include that, some may not, just provide some further implications as to why, but ultimately not a
Right.
sexual verse, so
Right.
that we would conclude.
Yeah. Right. Right. Very good. I think it's going back to the time again. You're going to try to bring up all of these codices, where that's some of the issues that we've been having. The Sinaiticus, the Vaticanus. All right? Because there too, there's a lot of things that have been omitted from the earlier translations of the Bible. But that's another study also.
Yeah, the thing to be careful about that is, we assume the oldest one's the accurate one. It could be there's an older one that did have it, that's lost to us.
Right.
That one's the error, and we go, well, that one must be right. So we just know there was a difference between two different manuscripts. That's why one includes it, one doesn't.
Yeah. All right. But that fact there, that 17, I believe it's also found in other parts of the Bible. Right? Agreed?
Yes.
It's found in the other Gospels. Right. Very good. So I think, this is why it's good to always go back to the original languages and check what's going on in doing a study of it. See, but the good thing is that it is found in the other. Good job there, Angie. Okay, go on, Sister B. 23. I know 2:26, 2:25.
But they were insistent, demanding with a loud voice that he be crucified. And the voices of these men and of the chief priests prevailed. So Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they requested. And he released them, and the one they requested, who for rebellion and murder had been thrown into prison. But he delivered Jesus to their will.
Right. You see, as Brother Rob was saying earlier on, you're releasing somebody who's an insurrectionist himself, and you're concerned about maintaining the peace of Rome. But here, suddenly now you want to release a man who has been disturbing the peace of Rome? You see, but I guess he was obliged in fulfilling that request or that requirement substituting one for another.
But you think he was trying to keep the Jewish people under control?
Yes,
Using them.
yes, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, if you give it to them, then there won't be. Their instruction will come later on. Well, not just then. Yeah. Well, before the destruction of Jerusalem, there were all kinds of things going on from the same group of people who had been planning to overthrow Rome, but instead they were crushed. Okay, very good. Now, at this time, I think maybe it's interesting or important for us to also slot in the death of Judas here. It is not contained here in the book of Luke, but rather in Matthew chapter 27, verses 3 to 10. And I can just go through that very quickly for you. Then Judas, verse 3, his betrayer, seeing that he had been condemned, was remorseful and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. And they said, what is that to us? You see to it. See, verse 5, then he threw down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed and went and hanged himself. 6, verse 6, but the chief priest took the silver pieces and said, it is not lawful to put them into the treasury because they are the price of blood. But where did they take this money out from to pay? From the treasury. They took the money from the treasury to pay this guy. But now suddenly after he betrayed Jesus Christ, now that's blood money. You don't take that money and put it back in the church treasury or in their treasury. As a result of which we find that in Acts chapter 1, verses 8 and 9, we are told, now this man purchased a field with the wages of iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst into the middle, and all his entrails gushed out. And it became known to all those dwelling in Jerusalem, so that the field is called in their own language, Akeldama, that is, field of blood. Now evidently Judas hung himself, right? But you know the interesting thing, it's told here, this man purchased a field. Who is the one that purchased the field here?
Technically the priest.
Right. You see how crooked they were? Money is not good to be put back into the treasury, but instead they take it and they buy a plot of land. So this is what our Lord was going through when he was a human being. He had to deal with all of this corruption.
But the fact that they would not take the money and put it back in the treasury is an admission of guilt. They recognized what they did was blood money. They knew what they were doing. Why they care now is the interesting thing.
Right, yeah. And then later on they come up with the story about Jesus Christ and his resurrection. We'll talk about that another time.
Maybe it's because of the confession of Judas. Judas says, I have sinned, drank innocent blood.
Right.
And so now they have the priests have a confession right there on their hands.
That's right, yeah. All right, next we'll go on to the next subheading. Any questions, comments?
Actually,
Good.
I didn't know if we were going to move on from this, but I kind of wanted to just touch on it. But I thought it was kind of amazing when looking at it. This is one of the, I wouldn't say necessarily the first copy wrong with anybody else, but this was literally, Barabbas was literally somebody that Jesus had died for because he took his place over that. And hopefully, there was, obviously he was having saving grace with him later in life, so I don't really know any into that, but just kind of seeing that play where Jesus, not deserving, was chosen over somebody who literally tried to lead a rebellion against Rome, but ultimately was set free over a man who was innocent. So
Right.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Right. Jesus came to save. Barabbas was a murderer. He took lives, but Jesus saved lives. You see, very interesting. A long time ago, I watched a movie. This was on Barabbas, but it's apparently fictitious. The guy who's a star, you guys may have seen it, Anthony Quinn. You saw that? But it was so interesting. According to the movie, he converted to Christianity. He realized what has happened, etc. I hope in reality it was the case, That'd be great. All right, verses 26 to 42, the king on the cross. Linda, read that.
26 to what?
To 42. I'll stop you in between if I need to.
Okay. And as they led him away, they seized one Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and laid on him the cross to carry it behind Jesus.
Okay, just hang on there for a moment. Where's Cyrene? Where about in Africa? Yeah, what country?
Was it Libya?
Yes, Libya. Right, very good. So here was a man from Libya. What was he doing in Jerusalem? Which means he was what? Maybe not, remember? Yeah, Jew. Because remember, there was a lot of people in the north of Africa, as well as Ethiopia, etc., that who were Jews, who went to the Passover. If you go back to, for example, you look at Acts 2:10, chapter 6, verse 9, chapter 11, verse 20, 13, verse 1, he talks about Cyrene, the person from Cyrene. Okay, go ahead, 27, and 27 to 29.
And there followed him a great multitude of people and of women who were mourning and laminating for him. But turning to them, Jesus said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming when they will say, blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bear, and the breasts that never nurse."
Okay, stop there. Lamenting, right? Laminating.
Sorry.
I was wondering, maybe that Bible's also got a wrong word there to me.
Is it laminating?
All right. Why will they weep for themselves and their children?
Because of their barren.
No. With their children, they're not barren if they have children. What was Jesus Christ prophesying all along? Sorry? The fall of Jerusalem. Destruction was going to come. You see, he warned the people over and over throughout the book of Luke, as a matter of fact. Now, the days here, you see the term the days? The days refers to time. If you go back to chapter 5, verse 35, and chapter 17, verse 22, when the bridegroom will be taken away, that is, who? Christ. Well, not one stone shall be left upon another. 21 verse 6. What's he referring to there? Right. The word the days is used in reference to all of this. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days, for there will be great distress in the land and wrath upon this people. Chapter 21 verse 23. Now Jewish women considered a woman who bore children as blessed. But they also considered those who didn't bear children as cursed. Did you know that? Oh, okay, you can go to Genesis chapter 30 verse 23 on that as well. So all blessings and curses are now going to be reversed. You know why? Because those who are carrying babies or those who are pregnant are going to have a problem during the destruction of Jerusalem when they start running up to the hills to get away from the city when it was going to be destroyed. But those who are barren, it's going to be easier for them than those who are pregnant and those who are carrying babies. So that's what he's referring to. And verse 30 tells us, and they will begin to say to the mountains, fall on us. Now why would they want to say that? Possibly two reasons, yeah? One, protect us. Let the mountains protect us. Or alternately, let the mountains fall on us and let us perish because we're suffering, getting annihilated here by the Roman army. You see, so this was going to be a very difficult time that they will see or they will experience in the future. So that's what Christ is saying. Don't mourn for me, mourn for yourselves. Mourn for yourselves because you will be the one that is in great need. Not me. And 31 says, therefore, if they do these things in the greenwood. This is an interesting one. Verse 31, for if they do these things in the greenwood, what will be done in the dry? What is he saying here? He's talking about a forest of green wood and dry wood. North Carolina, green in the warmer times and dry in the winter. What is he talking about here? Is it easy to burn a green tree? Is it easy to burn a dry tree? Right? So that's what he's saying. A green tree is not so easily set on fire and is used for the innocent. As a matter of fact, this is a proverb. It is supposedly a proverbial expression that was used during those times. See, so sometimes for us, it's very difficult for us to comprehend exactly what this is intended to mean. But from all my research, this is what I came up with, that it is a proverbial expression. A green tree is not easily set on fire and is used for the innocent. The dry, on the other hand, is easily set on fire and is used for the guilty. See? So the green wood here is representative of Jesus, while the dry wood is representative of Jerusalem in judgment. Now you may have some other interpretation, that's fine. Please let me hear it. Any thoughts on that? Brother Rob? Any thoughts on that? Any? All right, good. If you come up with anything different, please share that with us. All right, let's go on to. Go ahead, read 32 and 33 there, Linda.
Two others who were criminals were led away to be put to death with him. And when they came to the place that is called the Skull, there they crucified him, and the criminals, one on his right and one on his left.
Okay. Now, this term here, Calvary, is also known as Golgotha. It's also known as the place of skull. So this, again, is a fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy, Isaiah chapter 53, verse 9, so forth. But there's an interesting lesson here. When you think about these two thieves, one was a repentant one, and one was not. Can the world slot themselves in both these people? Slot themselves in these two people.
Categorized?
Yes.
Well, in one or the other, but not both.
Yeah, not both. No, one or the other. Yes. Right. One rejected him and the other received him by faith. One is in the place of condemnation while the other is in the presence of God. Right? So everyone in the entire world of mankind is represented by one or the other of these men. So the question is, on which side are you? Which side am I?
Josh, I'm not sure the Bible ever says who's on the right and the left. But if the believer is on the right and the non-believer on the left, that would be very interesting because Jesus actually uses the metaphor. Those on the left depart from me and those on the right.
I know.
That'd be interesting.
Oh man. All right. All right. Let's continue. 34, Linda.
And Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Okay, stop right there. That's the first saying on that cross. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Now, them, who does them refer to? Sure, everyone. But at that particular moment?
The ones crucified.
Yeah, the one
Right.
who put him on the cross.
Right. So some of the fruit of the prayer can be seen in the salvation of these very same people as we go on to Acts chapter 2 and onwards. Because these people were present there when they crucified Jesus Christ. So Jesus is saying, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. What did they not know that they were doing?
Crucifying God.
No, crucifying more specifically who? The Messiah, the promised Messiah. They read about him. He's all over the Old Testament. He's all over the Torah. But they cannot identify with him simply because they had now resorted to their own traditions more so than the Word of God. If they stuck to the Word of God, they would identify Jesus Christ and they would have submitted to him as their Messiah. But no, he was going against everything that they were teaching. But everything that they were teaching was the was their traditions, the oral traditions, those writings, not the exact Old Testament law of the Torah. No, it wasn't that. That's what Jesus Christ was debating with them constantly. All right, so they did not recognize him as the true Messiah. They were blind to divine truth. Otherwise, they would have not crucified him. And their spiritual blindness was the manifestation of their guilt. All right, and so when you think about, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do, you're thinking about a boundless compassion that God had for the people, that Jesus had for the people. All right, I think our time's up. We've got 1 minute left, so let's just stop there at 35. Any questions or comments before